Evidence of the Underground Railroad in Chambersburg existed as early as 1827, when the American Colonization Society first met in the early courthouse. While this society languished and the founding of an anti-abolitionist organization appeared in the 1830s, still there was something secretive happening in Chambersburg, as well as the entire county throughout the 1840s and 1850s. At a weatherboarded house on King Street, Abraham Rittner, son of the abolitionist governor, was helping to transport fugitive slaves north. His day job as conductor on the Cumberland Valley Railroad gave him the perfect opportunity to hide those individuals seeking freedom. After his death in 1851, supposedly his widow Mary continued his work. Yet, only 200 feet away lived a well-known slave catcher by the name of George Gross. Allies of the Underground Railroad knew this was an active community of stations and station masters. A lamp in the window at night or a quilt in the yard signaled a safe house. John Brown had no trouble finding this boarding house. The site became famous as the John Brown House, where the abolitionist stayed while planning his raid on Harper's Ferry. Tradition also tells us that the old jail was a safe house used to hide slaves. In the dungeon is a fake fireplace, behind which lies a secret room where runaway slaves could have been hidden. Sounds of crying babes could be muffled by the thickness of the walls. At night, the fugitives would have been moved 1/2 block to the passenger train station on 2nd Street and sent on their way north. Dr. Samuel Reynolds, whose office and home were just beyond Washington Street on 2nd Street, was opposed to slavery at an early age. His Southern family were landholders and slave owners. Studying in Boston, he became an ardent abolitionist and broke with his family. Settling in Chambersburg, he may have secured passage for fugitives from his home. Dr. Reynolds practiced medicine until the time of his death in 1881 and is buried in Zion Reformed Church graveyard. Another person with strong ties to the movement was James Leslie, who came to Chambersburg in 1845 to become cashier of the Bank of Chambersburg. He was a strong abolitionist at a time when it cost something to be one. Most cashiers lived in the house behind the bank, located to the left of the Central Presbyterian Church today. His house was known as the depot on the Underground Railroad, where it was safe to stop and rest before going north to freedom. During the dedication of Franklin Hall in 1856, Mr. Leslie was asked for funds to bring in a Hagerstown, Maryland band for the parade. Mr. Leslie refused, claiming he wouldn't give money to go to a slave state. He later relented and gave $2 to help with the expenses. Henry Watson, a mulatto barber whose business was just west off the Diamond, was a well-known conductor on the Underground Railroad. His home on West Liberty Street, just beyond Zion Reformed Church, harbored fugitives. In addition, Frederick Douglass boarded there when in Chambersburg, and Osborne Anderson, one of John Brown's band, hid there after his escape from Harper's Ferry. Other stories from William Still's book, The Underground Railroad, prove Chambersburg was a pathway to freedom. One involves David, a slave from Virginia, who arrived in Chambersburg as a coachman under the protection of a white lady with a small child. They asked for and received accommodations at a local hotel. The next morning, the hotel keeper thought something was suspicious, but promised not to betray them. Believing this mode of travel to be dangerous, they left the horse and carriage there and took a passenger car to Quakers in Philadelphia. Stories of other fugitives mention the fact that they also left horse and carriage here in Chambersburg and took passenger cars north to Harrisburg. As late as 1858, the Anti-Abolitionist Society again reared its head in Chambersburg through the Democratic Party. Some of the most prominent and patriotic men of the county encouraged everyone to turn away from the prejudices against their Southern brethren and listen to them. Escaping was extremely dangerous. For the runaway, it could mean death if caught. For anyone aiding him or her after the passage of the Fugitive Slave Law in 1850, it could mean fines, jail sentences, or financial disaster. This law created a backlash whereby many moderates became strong abolitionists, and the Underground Railroad moved at a faster pace to free the slaves.
When the sun comes back, when the first quail calls,
watch and guard is hours of rest.
For the old man is waiting.
Hide him
Carry
from the searcher's quest. Pass him on.
Well, a riverbank
Help him.
is a
All
mighty
who
good
help
man.
him can.
Dead trees
God,
show the way.
the North Star, for his guide,
Barefoot, pigfoot, traveling on.
giveth every fellow man.
Drink and go.
Pass him on.
Follow the drink and